Yes, everyone, I am back, and I bet you thought I forgot we had 2 cans left in our action movie franchise 6-pack. Now, I touched on this franchise earlier with my review of Fast 5, but I figure I'd go a little more in depth with my investigation and my opinions on the Fast and Furious franchise, which is the 5th can in our action movie franchise 6-pack. So let's get started right away with The Fast and the Furious. It's the first time we get to meet Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto, the champion of the underground racing scene, who is, along with his sister Mia, played by Jordana Brewster. They are the family famous for the underground, and, you know, they just know all things about cars, and they dominate, okay? Along with Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto, you have Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez, who's his girl, his main squeeze, and yes, she can race too. Now, enter in Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor, who is joining in the underground racing scene and soon becomes friends with the Toretto family and their friends. And as he works himself into this underground racing scene family, you find out he's actually an undercover cop investigating the hijackings going on involving very fast cars taking over semis, okay? Hence, there's the drama and the dilemma as Toretto family become more and more suspects. Brian O'Connor gets more and more torn at what he's doing because he's starting to get the hots for Mia. Folks, the Fast and the Furious franchise brought the car chase movie back in a big way. The action sequences are just shot beautifully. You get some great car chase scenes that you hadn't seen in a long time. You know, the closest thing we got was some of the Michael Bay stuff from Bad Boys, and that just, you know, doesn't live up to the stuff they did in the Fast and the Furious. That's why this movie helped launch a franchise, and that's why this movie got 4 stubs in my book. You had character depth, first off, with the character of Dominic Toretto, who was actually kind of the softy, yet hardcore, a criminal guy. You know, you had the character that you liked in Brian O'Connor, you loved Letty and Mia, and just all the other characters. They were very personable and people that you could either relate to or just kind of grow to like, and you didn't want to see bad things happen to them. So the Fast and the Furious gave depth to your average flat car chase race movie, which then launched Too Fast and Too Furious, where Paul Walker is back as his character of Brian O'Connor, only this time he's joined by Tyrese Gibson and, yes, Ludacris. Ludacris was fantastic in this. Once again, we get car chases with fast cars, and you get Paul Walker, who's investigating this criminal who's stealing these really fast cars for, you know, underground reasons, and he's joined with his one-liner dropping buddy, played by Tyrese Gibson, and they're also joined by Eva Mendes, who plays an undercover FBI agent as well. Folks, this is more of the same of the first one without the depth, which was kind of sad. They kind of went a little bit lighter with the Too Fast and the Too Furious, and they also went a little more extravagant with the car chases, which, while they were fantastic to see on screen, they were starting to get more Dukes of Hazzard-like and a little bit more unbelievable. It's not really a solid follow-up. It was still decent, but I think they went a little too light with it. And although you get some of the great shots that we loved in it, including, yes, again, the underground car show scene, it still was weaker of the 2 films, and that's why Too Fast and Too Furious only gets 3 stubs in my book, just for the action sequences and the one-liners, which are great, but it didn't have that depth that the first one had. Now you move on to Too Fast and Too Furious Tokyo Drift, the 3rd installment in this franchise, where we get the story of a boy taken to Tokyo who is, you know, got a reputation for being a bad boy with racing cars and causing lots of damage with said cars. You know, he's into cars and fast driving, and then so he hooks up in the Tokyo underground racing scene with Tokyo Drifting, which is drifting the cars, a lot different racing than we had seen in the previous 2 films, plus different, more extravagant cars. Now we're getting more almost Matchbox looking cars, okay, in the form of all these foreign cars rather than more of some of the other muscle cars that we saw in the earlier films. So that kind of took getting used to, but the style of racing is different, so that added a fresh element to it. But without really any of the principal characters in there, you really didn't have anything to attach it to the other ones, except for one cameo by Vin Diesel, which would seem just tossed in there at one point, okay? Now, we do love the character Han. The Sung Kang's character is fantastic, and he is probably one of the best things to come out of the 3rd movie, okay? I really enjoyed his character, and due to things that happened to him, it kind of screws up the timeline for the next 2 films, but Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is like the weakest, I would say, out of the 3, in that it didn't just seem to quite fit, though they forced it to kind of fit into the franchise. That's why it still, though, gets 3 stubs for the action sequences, but again, there is no real depth like we used to get from the first one. Now we move on to Fast and Furious, not The Fast and Furious, but Fast and Furious, the 4th movie, and this one, we got the gang back together. Yes, Paul Walker is Brian O'Connor, this time's in LA, and he's investigating a heroin smuggler, and guess what? He ends up crossing paths with his old friend Dominic Toretto, as well as Toretto's sister, who the flames fire up again, okay? And due to events that happen, he ends up having to work with the guy who he's been trying to take down since he went on the lam from the first movie, and they work together to help take down the heroin guy due to some very nasty events that happen. And in the end, we get, well, if you've seen Fast 5, you know, basically the end of Fast 4 is the beginning of Fast 5. We basically see that Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor, has joined the other side. His love for Mia has just taken over. He can't handle the bureaucracy, and his love for family of the Torettos just overcomes his duty as a law enforcement officer. Fast and Furious gets 3.5 stubs. It was great to see the gang back together. You still get your action and car chases. You're bringing some of that depth back. Not quite as much as the first one, but still, it was better than the other 2 sequels between the first one and the 4th one. Now, you already know my review on the Fast 5. We won't really go into it too deep there, only I do want to add that I forgot to mention there's a fantastic fight scene in Fast 5 between Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel, and it shows you what happens when you get a stuntman, ex-stuntman, and a professional wrestler together fighting. That you get fisticuffs, no weapons, just bare knuckle fight, crashing through doors and windows and walls. And it's actually the actors, which helps add so much to when they shoot the movie, because you don't get any of that fake digital crap when they put it over the body doubles. No, it's really these 2 principal actors beating the tar out of each other, and it makes for an enjoyable scene in probably what is the most solid of the franchise. Yes, Fast 5. Definitely go see it if you haven't already, folks. It is such an entertaining action film, and that's what makes the Fast and the Furious franchise my guilty franchise pleasure. I should not enjoy this franchise as much as I did, but I do, and I think you will too. Especially if you watch them all together, you will see that the first one was a solid help breakthrough back to the car chase movie, and the Fast 5 is just showing that they're just getting started with this story, and we're glad we are and can't wait for the next one in this series. And that'll about do it for us here at the Final Cut. Till next time, keep that ticket stub.